Evening, everyone. So welcome to my presentation this evening. Firstly, my name's Stuart, Mellor from Sammet Consulting. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight, and thank you to the ICME for the opportunity to present. I meant to say why the forgings bit was crossed out. I hope nobody's come just to listen to forging simulation, because I got to a conclusion that I was coming to a castings, a collection of castings people, and I thought the last thing they want to hear about is forging simulation. So I'm afraid I haven't got anything prepared in my presentation on forging simulation. Happy to talk at any time later, but not in the presentation. So myself, I'm a metallurgist through and through, and as many of you will know, as a metallurgist, quality becomes inescapable. So the technical attention to detail leads into technical auditing. Technical auditing in aerospace inevitably means NADCAP. In fact, recent experience shows that there's less and less pure quality personnel being employed, and that quality is being integrated into other roles, maybe as it should be. So I want to present my research and my experience tonight. So around NADCAP, but also all my other experience to date. It's absolutely not my intention tonight to disrespect NADCAP in any way. It's just to present findings and experience, and to perhaps have a bit of a discussion at the end. What I've done to try and alleviate some of the content is to throw some pictures in. I was having a look at my presentation the other day, and it was words and words and words and words. I thought, I've got to put some pictures in. Okay, so every so often there's going to be some relatively random pictures popping up to try and alleviate the subject matter. So I just wanted to see in the audience whether I've got any brothers and sisters in metallurgy. Is it? Yeah. And maybe any kind of call them brothers and sisters in NADCAP. No. Okay. Okay. So first random picture, not completely random. So I couldn't find a picture of the F119 gearbox, a published picture, but I thought this picture was quite a nice one. So early in my career, I went over to North America and helped foundry cast the banana-shaped magnesium gearbox for the F119 engine, which I think that's, I will stand correct, but I think that's an F22. Nobody's shaking their head. So this is the plan around the NADCAP content. Maybe I can remove some common misconceptions, bring you up to speed with the current status, and maybe have your thoughts on the future of castings, NADCAP and castings. So it started out in the 90s, and it started out as original equipment manufacturers. I'm going to talk about as OEMs and suppliers to those companies, getting together their process experts, generating audit criteria or checklists, and thereby having an industry best practice criteria, and then using that criteria to maintain or improve standards across aerospace and defence. So it's now, hang on. So it's now one of the PRI industry managed programs. along with Medicred and some other programs. So it went from all capitals to just the N. And one of the stated aims continues to be to reduce the audit burden, so to reduce redundant audits, they call them. And those are the audits that every OEM comes to your site and audits the same thing from the same process, maybe just on a different part. My experience in heat treatment, in NDT and lab, NADCAP work is that certainly for critical parts, the OEMs are not prepared to reduce the frequency of their audits, so they continue to audit at the same frequency as the NADCAP. So there's currently about 24 commodities. Each commodity basically has its own task group. And the latest one, I believe, was additive manufacturing that they've added to that group of commodities. So this is some work I did where we've generated a 3D X-ray image. So it's a cross section of a bimetal component generated from generated from X-ray image data, courtesy of North Star. Thank you. This is a selection of the task groups that are maybe pertinent to casting. Heat treatment and NDT are the two longest standing, most established. And castings fits in the metallic materials manufacturing task group. That's also known as MMM for short. So the OEMs, your customers, will mandate NADCAP by task group, not the actual process itself. So they're going to mandate MMM. They're not going to mandate clearly castings or forging. It's just to add to the confusion. So the decisions with the OEMs, what to mandate, for example, GE mandate heat treatment. Obviously, lots of other OEMs mandate heat treatment as well, but they don't mandate MMM for forging. And like I was saying, you can access through PRI, who manage the program. You can access through PRI the mandates, but they're by task group, so you can't tell. If you look at let's say Rolls-Royce, they mandate MMM task group, but it doesn't actually say whether they mandate forgings or castings or powder or what. So you're really relying on your customers to tell you or talk to you about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. So the MMM task group started out in about 2013, aiming to cover forging raw material, castings, and maybe powder. I joined the task group in 2014, spent many hours supporting the forging, writing the forging handbook and the forging criteria. I left my forging role in 2019, so I had to surrender my role on the task group. And you've got the audit criteria, just the identities of the audit criteria in brackets. So off the back of 6 years developing the forging criteria, they moved on in about 2019 to the castings checklists. Progress is slow. It's a committee writing process, committee approval process, and that approval process is all the voting members. So it's all the OEMs and all the suppliers. You need to follow the task group needs to follow the PRI rules for quorum. And so they got to the point in 2022 where they published the two checklists, the two casting checklists that are listed. Once they're published, it's up to the OEMs whether they mandate and how they mandate. And I know for forgings, a group of large forging suppliers opted out on principle. So they said to their customers, we as a group of are not going to take part in NADCAP because of the proprietary nature of their processes. I think a lot of those suppliers also supply castings. Thank you. Okay, so a little sidestep again. So we've got counterblow forging hammers, top left, heat treatment, batch heat treatment, and non-destructive testing. Just a little insight. So these are the current leaders on the top of this slide of the task group. So I think there's a 2-year rule for the chair. So the idea is that it's shared between OEMs. I don't think suppliers are allowed to be at that top end of the task group. So currently Safran are chairing the group. So since June 2024 meeting, there's been no open discussion, and so there's nothing in the minutes to be able to tell whether OEMs are mandating. So like I said, we can only see that they're mandating MMM. We can't see whether they're actually going to mandate castings or forgings or powder. You're left waiting for your customer to talk to you, which I suppose they should. As a flavour of participation at the last meeting, which was October 2024, so there's 3 meetings in the year, February, June and October. At the October meeting, there were 12 OEMs. I haven't got here what the split was, but we had 6 forging suppliers, 5 casting suppliers and 6 powder suppliers, just as a flavour. Some reality checks. So there continues to be not enough participation, so not enough subscriber mandates. And I know I touched on earlier OEMs that are ordering critical parts. They're not that keen to mandate because they're going to be auditing the processes themselves anyway. They can't step away for the critical parts. So that kind of inertia, if you like, is a strong contribution to the lack of task group growth. You've also got that other inertia that I mentioned, where some of the large suppliers are not participating. Saying that, some of them do send members to keep themselves in the loop on the task group. So currently, the size of the task group voting membership is such that castings, for example, castings checklists need forging or powder specialists to vote for them to meet the PRI quorum rules. So, I mean, okay, there's some overlap, but you've got that slightly odd situation. But that also means, wouldn't it be better to split the task group into forgings, castings, so you could focus on the processes? But you can't do that because you haven't got enough membership to do that. So that's that. Results to date have shown that auditors have been unable to appreciate the complexities of the OEM requirements. So I guess you must be familiar. Sometimes it's quite difficult to work out what the flow down, what the requirements, what requirements are actually being flowed down. So the auditors are missing these critical parameters, if you like, in the audit, and actually the OEMs are going in and finding these things themselves. So if you like, removing the need for NADCAP, really. So if the MMM experience has highlighted anything, it's that complexity of process specification, or it's perhaps a complete lack of process specification from the OEMs, and that then leads to both, really leads on to having to have complex fixed processes. These are approved by the OEMs, and they're often full of proprietary stuff, possibly proprietary to the OEM as well. So both supplier and OEM don't want anybody third party coming in and auditing them. On the plus side, we've got highly detailed audit criteria, can be used to properly test your process integrity. So I think I've already said checklists are now referred to as criteria. They've long since lost their duplicated questions on the management system standards, the AS 9100, etc. documents. And if we can set aside the question of whether customers are going to force us to join, we actually have these published checklists, a set of audit criteria documents generated by industry experts from the OEMs and the suppliers, and actually a really good audit resource. So each document runs through logical process flow, as on the slide, and the auditors are required to witness the live process, so wherever possible, viewing the process in action, and that's a requirement. That's not a nice to have. So all in all, it's a well conceived and well set up criteria, and taking that in isolation, it may be worth considering, regardless of whether your customer requires it, forces you to do it. Thank you. So I started out in the late 90s, had the benefit of Professor Campbell's teachings at the University of Birmingham. I worked through magnesium casting and Sellafield plant integrity assessment, got my chartered engineer, and I've carried on through and got my fellowship at the Institute in 2021. So my experience has spanned magnesium sand casting, magnesium direct chill casting. I mentioned the plant integrity assessment, so risk-based inspection strategies at Sellafield. That rolled into aerospace forging dies, and then my aerospace experience is around forging, hot forging, so process definition for critical parts, so finite element modeling to prove the process before heating metal, and then going into fixed process definition for a number of OEMs, so Rolls-Royce, Safran, Honeywell, GE, Pratt & Whitney. So that deep understanding and that resilience is what I think what got me into NADCAP auditing, and from the quality systems side, my experience spans metallurgical laboratory, NDT process lines, and management system standards, including 17025 for the labs. And on the NDT side, knowledge and experience in X-ray, ultrasonic, dye pen, surface etch, metallurgical, and magnetic particle. So I want to be your dependable resource, support you in defect investigations, product or process failure, process improvement, your research partner, linking with research institutions, or simply as a trainer or mentor for technical roles. On the quality side, I've got a growing customer base that appreciate my offer of third-party oversight or pre-audit, so doing the work up front to prevent audit findings. Just want to say thank you to the ICME and especially Wendy for inviting me tonight, and open to you guys to challenge me, to let me know your thoughts on NADCAP. just have a chat. Thank you.
Hi, Stuart. Thanks very much. The NADCAP thing, I've actually crossed over from castings to forgings recently, and it's then aerospace, marine, etc. And one of the things that I sort of consider is that the automotive 6949, which is process orientated, perhaps should inform some of the aerospace, marine. I was just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, I completely see your point. And there were, before I left the aerospace forging company, there were customers starting to force some of those kinds of methodologies, so around FMEA and batch checking and batch validation and that kind of thing. But I'm not sure how it's continued since then. But yeah, I think you're right. It's the only challenge is the batch size thing, I think, with aerospace. So you tend to be making batches and relatively smaller batches rather than production line type.
Thank you very much, Stuart, for coming this evening, and we've just got a small prize for you.